Hello everybody. Today I'm going to give you the top 10 DLCs that Bethesda made in my opinion. And we're going to jump right in with the Oblivion DLC, Knights of the Nine. Now Knights of the Nine links you to all the Dragonborn history, the Elysian Revolution and various artifacts which keep popping up throughout time, and added a bit of a mystery regarding the Priest of the Nine and things like that, and where he disappears and where he comes from. It's a good mod, DLC, but it is actually mostly combat, so it didn't really feel to me as deep as it should have been. So it is my number 10. It's a forgive me if I use the word mod instead of DLC, it's just force of habit. At number 9 is Automatron for Fallout 4. Now why would that be at number 9 ahead of Knights of the Nine? Because it actually worked well with Fallout 4. It added to the settlement features. You could use the robots to do tasks like connect cities or connect settlements so they could share resources, or use them as companions and all kinds of things. So I felt, or even protection. So I felt that was a really good add-on for that game. So that DLC is my number 9. At number 8, that would be Bloodmoon for Morrowind. Now, Bloodmoon added Solstheim. You could travel to Solstheim. You helped build Raven Rock in that particular DLC for Morrowind, and did missions from a certain fort, which would later become the focus of quests in the Dragonborn DLC much later. Raven Rock that you see in the Dragonborn DLC is the same Raven Rock you see or you help build in Bloodmoon. So there's connections there over 2 or 3 games, where you get to build it and then go back centuries later and see how it developed. And to be honest, I think that connection is one of the reasons why Dragonborn is higher up on the list than other DLCs, because it does feel like it's got a rich history as a result of the Bloodmoon DLC. At number 7, Broken Steel. Now Broken Steel was for Fallout 3. Fallout 3 itself lacked, it was lacking in many of the DLC areas, I felt, and Broken Steel was the one that fixed the death at the end of the quest, added a giant robot with a killer laser, which is what's not to like about that. It used to fire nukes at everything. I mean, from a combat perspective, it was a really awesome thing to be fighting alongside. It really added to the atmosphere. It made the Brotherhood of Steel feel powerful. So I kind of liked it for that reason. So that there is my number 7. Now number 6 is Tribunal for Morrowind. Now Tribunal allowed you to go to Mournhold, the capital of Morrowind, and start delving deep into Dwemer ruins and meet various leaders of Morrowind itself, the Tribunal. So the Tribunal itself, you kind of get to know a little bit better through the Tribunal DLC, because until that point you're only really seeing the Vanderfell side of things. And since Morrowind is really deep in atmosphere and lore and provides a lot of the lore for later games, it was important, this DLC, important to the future of the Elder Scrolls that it got made. From a lore perspective, it's probably ranked closer to 2 or 3, but from a content perspective, it's my number 6. At number 5 is the Skyrim DLC, DawnGuard. Now why is DawnGuard? Well, DawnGuard had a few bugs in it, but it had a really interesting plotline about vampires. The only problem with that is the lead character would disappear from the game if you didn't complete the quest in one go, if you disappeared off to do other things. So it was quite a serious bug. Also, certain parts of the mod where you go looking for certain bows, it was rather long and drawn out and got a bit dull. But the idea was great. It added a lot to the game. It allowed you to play vampires and transform. So yeah, that's my number 5. Number 4 is Nuka World for Fallout 4. Now Nuka World was, in my opinion, an excellent area, well designed, lots of things going on, had a lot of potential, but basing it around a bandit faction proved to be highly unpopular and wasn't compatible with the rest of the game, because if you did that, a lot of the other game mechanics didn't work as well as they should do once you returned as a full-on bandit. So I ended up just clearing the bandits out, and in that respect the DLC was half as good as what it should be. But the areas, the locations, they were brilliant. Lots of loot there, lots of dialogue, interesting places to see and explore. Really worth its place at number 4. I especially used to like going through some of these sci-fi areas. I'm a sci-fi fan, maybe you guessed, right? But I like going through the sci-fi areas, but also exploring the land around the outside of all the amusement parks was also quite good. Listening to the bandit radio, that was brilliant. Of course, he stops the second you start killing them all, so that's a shame. But anyway, that was a really good DLC. I really liked it, and I don't play it as often as I do other DLCs for that game, but I definitely like it. My number 3 is Far Harbor for Fallout 4. Why Far Harbor? Well, the atmosphere was absolutely nailed early on, although it did come with a massive frame hit when you first arrived on the island, frames per second hit. The idea of creatures in the fog just appealed to me, and having it as a hideout for various escapees from the Institute just made it even better. Perhaps, the bit where you've got to go into the computer and start unlocking things might not have been my favourite part, but everything about that island I loved, from tracing down bits of unique armour, which I never wore, I just like to do the quest, to finding various bits, the new, I can't remember, the Children of the Atom and all that kind of things, and the interconnectivity of the plots and destroying one or saving them all. That was a first class DLC, first class in every sense of the word, and it's one of my favourite places to visit in Fallout 4. Number 2 is Skyrim's Dragonborn, which is one of my favourite places in all of Bethesda's games to go to. I've based entire characters around that DLC and just not left Solstheim. Why? Well, again, the Bloodmoon connection mentioned earlier. We have the Bloodmoon connection is from establishing Raven Rock on Solstheim, and here's Dragonborn going back years later to the same island and seeing how it's changed. And I used to like the fact that Raven Rock wasn't just a carbon copy of the fact of what it used to be. It actually changed over the years, and the ash fall from the volcano just made the walls even higher, because they had to build them higher to keep the ash from just covering the whole of the settlement. So I like that. I also like the rich history it had and the links it had to Morrowind and Vanderfell, and how it continued the story of the Dark Elves after the Argonian invasion, and explains a little bit of what went on, and we see which factions and which clans or houses were ruling now, and which ones had fallen out of favour. If anything, it was like playing an expansion to Morrowind 200 or 300 years after Morrowind finished, and I loved that about it. It was like returning to an old favourite game, so I've got a lot of it's got a lot of sentimental value for me. So that is definitely my number 2. It would be my number 1, but there's one character we can't ignore, Sheogorath. I am of course talking about the Shivering Isles for Oblivion. That is my number 1 DLC from Bethesda. Why? Humour, Sheogorath, loads of great armour, especially if you played female characters, and excellent locations. Finally getting to see a realm of Oblivion where madness takes its toll. Whole towns and cities, or settlements full of people that are just off their rockers. All kinds of creatures you don't see outside of the Shivering Isles. Says a madman's quest, and then slowly becoming Sheogorath yourself, and then later on, as if there was, Bethesda really wanted to push home that point, you see yourself again in Skyrim as a kind of young Sheogorath, And it's a bit like a deja vu moment, and you just want it to continue, because the Shivering Isles was so good at the time that it seemed a pity just to end it with a small thing based from the Blue Palace. You wanted it to be a bit bigger than that, because let's face it, it was an old favourite, wasn't it? Sheogorath and his cheese and clowns and stuff. I mean, what's not to like about that? Sheogorath is probably one of the most beloved Daedric princes because he is completely off his rocker and psychotic. The various links he has to the world and everything else allowed me to do many quests for Mad Mods, and just write them off as a Sheogorath trick, because anything that didn't appear to make sense, yeah, Sheogorath was doing it. It was good. He's probably one of the best characters in the Elder Scrolls series, the ones people like the most, the ones people have laughed at the loudest, and the one that's also probably the most dangerous. And now we got to see his Shivering Isles and take over and become his ruler. The only thing I do regret is the mod I made for that particular DLC contained some serious bugs, so I have to withdraw it, because it let you literally become the ruler. You didn't just replace Sheogorath, you became Sheogorath for real. But that was a shame, that though. But anyhow, number one definitely was the Shivering Isles. Now, if I were to go through them all and just briefly pick out some special mentions, feature-wise, I would say probably Bloodmoon for the werewolves, Broken Steel for the giant robot, Tribunal because of the Dwemer stuff in there just added to it, and that was the one where the Dwemer ruins, I think that was the one they added the ash piles to the locations, which gave me an idea for my Dwemer video that is on my channel now. DawnGuard becoming a vampire, I mean, it's good fun for a bit, it's well worth it. Nuka world, the armour, it's got to be the armour on it, because you get loads of power armour in there and it's all custom, so that's good. Far Harbour, just the world, the atmosphere is brilliant, there's loads of little bits you can find. Dragonborn, Raven Rock, it's just a fantastic place to base a character. If you want to make a Dark Elf character, go straight to Raven Rock and start your character there. You literally make it, go straight there after you've done the usual Skyrim quests, and just start levelling up from that location as soon as you can, early as possible. And the Shivering Isles, it's just because Sheogorath's there, innit? So they're my top 10 DLCs from Bethesda. I don't think any of the others come even close to that. If you've got different ideas about this, post your ideas below. Tell us what your top 10 are. I've got a feeling the Shivering Isles and Dragonborn will be at the top of most people's lists. The rest you might disagree on a little bit, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But just talking about Shivering Isles makes me want to go back to it. So I'm going to get off and maybe load things up. See you in the next one.